All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having an incredible weekend. Going to keep it super simple today for our film session. I'm going to focus on every single play from the Spurs comeback from down 14 in the fourth quarter of game 2. Obviously, the Knicks end up winning the game, which we'll talk about when we get to those final sequences. But I really want to dive into what specifically they did differently, what can translate forward into the series, and whether or not it means the Spurs have much of a chance to try to make this thing a series. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. We have a goal to get to 150,000 subs before the end of the finals. If you guys don't mind taking a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button, that helps us a lot. If you're already subscribed, like this video and sign up for post notifications. That helps us a lot. All right, let's talk some basketball. Let's get right into it. We're going to be starting with the first bucket after. So OG Anunoby gets the dunk driving on Wemby in a closeout situation. And look at how fast the Spurs get up the floor after a made basket. And this really is the story of how they got going here down the stretch. Harper draws a foul in the open floor. This is the biggest thing that can translate forward to them. They have got to play with as much pace as possible to weaponize some of that youthful exuberance and athleticism they have because of the troubles that they're having in the half court because of how big of a jump shooting gap there is. We talked about this a little bit last night, but the Knicks have been the very best jump shooting team in the NBA in this playoff run. The Spurs have been more of a middle of the pack jump shooting team among the playoff teams. So it's very important for them to avoid that slow down half court environment where in the driving kick setting where the physical dynamic isn't as advantageous for the Spurs as it was in the last round, they need to be in the open floor more. In the half court, the Knicks can really load up on the ball and can kind of counter that advantage. So this is the difference in the defensive look. We saw, and you're going to see a couple of different coverages down the stretch of this game, but the main thing was essentially no more of these outrageous, just outright double teams of Jalen Brunson far away from the basket, simplifying his decision-making tree and getting their defense into rotation. Here you're going to see effectively a double drag, but Deuce is going to slip out of the first screen. We're just going to get a switch. Fox is going to stay on Mikal Bridges, and now Wemby's guarding one-on-one. The reason why I kind of like this idea is, one, it forces Brunson to then attack Victor Wembanyama in space, but you're already kind of conceding Karl-Anthony Towns a mismatch underneath the basket anyway. This is something you've conceded the second you decided not to guard him with Wemby. So if you're already going to have Wemby basically functioning as a perimeter defender, why not use him on the other end of screens to try to get stops against Brunson? He gets multiple stops against Brunson down the stretch of the game in a way that helped them come back. Here's an example. You're going to see him force him into a kind of a step through move. Now everyone's guarded because you didn't double team. You have a good perimeter defender guarding Brunson. Everyone else is staying home off the ball. The resulting effect, Brunson has to force this kind of low percentage bounce pass to Cat, which Cat gets, and he goes up quick, but he has no advantage. He's coming from behind the backboard, and Champagnie ends up blocking him clean. We end up with a shot clock violation. Now we're going to run double drag. This double drag is going to end up forcing a switch with Jalen Brunson on De'Aaron Fox. This was one of the other stories of the late run in this game. In the half court, the Spurs indexed more towards trying to attack Brunson in action. Here, De'Aaron Fox just gets into a step back three over the top and knocks it down. Gets tons of separation, much more comfortable there. When you're allowing Brunson to work, you don't want to just let him work solely one-on-one. If he gets any sort of deep dribble penetration, you want to try to shrink the floor on him a little bit. Instead of an outright double team, like if Champagnie, let's talk about what this looks like after the switch. So Brunson likes the Champagnie matchup. He goes at Champagnie. Fox is on Mikal Bridges. So if De'Aaron Fox just outright goes and double teams Jalen Brunson, Brunson has the easiest decision in the world. I'm not shooting this thing. I'm just throwing the ball to Mikal. I throw the ball to Mikal. He's going to take a shot. You'll see an example of that here in a minute where the Spurs end up leaving Mikal Bridges wide open. He just happens to miss a shot. But by virtue of sending more of a dig down, see how it's a dig down? By virtue of sending a dig down rather than a hard double team, because see how he lunges at the ball, but then he lunges back out into the passing lane. Of course, Mikal back cuts him and he's actually wide open. But the point is you made this a more complicated decision. Now it's well, I might just shoot anyway, even though there's an open man here. That can prey on Jalen Brunson making the wrong decision and being overly aggressive, which is what he does here. The right read is to Mikal Bridges, who's wide open on the wing, but because you sent a dig down instead of an early double, You made him make a tougher decision. He makes the wrong decision. He forces it up and ends up missing. Karl-Anthony Towns ends up keeping it alive. I'm not going to show the next clip, but with 4 seconds left, they just run a baseline out of bounds play that goes nowhere. Deuce McBride gets the ball in the wing. He ends up forcing up a tough 15-footer and misses it. Actually, I am showing you the play. So Deuce McBride misses the little shot. Good box out from Wemby. They get the rebound. In the push ahead in transition, we get a cross match. That transition cross match ends up with Jalen Brunson on De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox ends up working him one-on-one, goes to this nasty little step-through move towards his left hand to score off the glass. Something to keep in mind there. If the Spurs do try going to their all-guard lineup, so Vassell, Fox, Castle, and Harper all together, he's going to start on Vassell, who, by the way, Vassell's a better movement shooter than Champagnie, so the hedge and recover will be less effective there. But in these situations, there will just be more possessions because there's 3 great ball handlers on the floor. There will be more possessions where Brunson just ends up on a ball handler in a transition cross match, and you have an opportunity to quick attack him one-on-one. This is that play where they leave Mikal Bridges open. So this is kind of like a weird, confusing sequence where I think Wemby was starting the possession on Mikal Bridges, but then he was like moving over. Never mind, I'm going to get Cat. Vassell gets kind of caught in between. But this is an example of when you make the decision tree easy, Brunson's not going to mess around. He's just going to throw the pass. That's why you don't, even though this wasn't a double team, that's why you don't double team those. So you don't have just a very simple, easy decision to an open shooter. He gets Vassell with a basic pump fake. He just happens to miss the shot. Going the other way, though, look at Victor Wembanyama playing off 2 feet. I don't like these Victor ISOs too much right now just because he's given up too much strength, but this is an example of how it can work for him in the long run. Watch him make a hard move and dislodge Cat. Boom, dislodges Cat. But instead of rumbling, stumbling off of 1 foot, plays off of 2 feet, keeps a strong base, and is able to pivot and get back to his left hand for a layup. That's why it's important to play off of 2 feet. This is an example of the one play down the stretch where they went to Cat with off-ball action, and they just never went back to this for whatever reason, but they ended up getting what should have been an open shot. So watch, Cat gets the ball. Brunson's going to set a back screen on Fox. When he does, back screen, now he's got inside position. Great read from Brunson. He slips out of it. Cat sees him. Boom. Great read, right? Now, from here, Brunson, once again, is in the decision-making zone, and he has 2 great opportunities. Wemby's going to come over late here, which you'll see in a second, but Mikal Bridges is butt naked in the right corner, wide open. Brunson, though, continues to force the issue and goes up against 2 guys. As you can see here, as he starts to attack, even Landry Shamet is open too, but this is a little bit hard to read. This is why late help is good. When I talk about late help, when you send late help rather than early help, it's more likely that the ball handler will miss it and fail to make the correct read. Wemby ends up swatting his ass off the glass. But again, you put Brunson into the decision-making zone here. He's making a lot of poor pass-shoot decisions. That's a big part of how the Spurs came back down the stretch of this game. It's a big adjustment that Brunson needs to make as he heads into the next game. When these help decisions are coming later, Brunson's fucking up. When you make the mistake out 25, 30 feet from the basket, the double team or the mistake, like we saw in the Mikal Bridges one, is just a much easier decision for Brunson. He's not going to make that mistake as often. 5-on-4, because Brunson's on the ground, we get in transition the advantage. Devin Vassell trailing the play. Classic great lift jump shot from Devin Vassell goes in. Here's another force from Brunson. So earlier on, we saw Wemby switching ball screens. We're going to see another example of it here later on in a few minutes. Good ball pressure up here, up top on the switch, makes life hell, but the ball does get to Brunson. We're going to run into a double drag. It kind of turns into a 45 action as OG Anunoby flips the screen. But now we have this ball screen, right? Vassell and Wemby. And Wemby's switching it is what he's thinking. And that's honestly what Vassell should do. Vassell is making a mistake here, frankly. And I'm hoping that in game 3 in MSG, the Spurs continue to just kind of stay home and let Brunson hunt Wemby on switches. But as he's hunting Wemby on the switch, he sees Wemby hanging back a little bit, so he goes into his hesitation pull-up. What he doesn't see is Devin Vassell ends up basically double-teaming him, and Mikal Bridges is wide open with 5 seconds on the shot clock. But once again, because you sent the help late rather than sending the help or the double team early, it puts Brunson into a shot pass decision, which is a little bit more complicated, And he continues to make the wrong decision basically every single time here down the stretch. Today's show is brought to you by presenting sponsor Hard Rock Bet, Florida's sportsbook. The NBA Finals are here. The lights are brighter, the pressure is higher, and every possession can define a legacy. Will New York finally end a 53-year drought and bring a title to the Big Apple? Or will San Antonio's young superstar tip off the next great dynasty run? However you see it playing out, head over to Hard Rock Bet and turn your picks into a payday. Because once the final buzzer sounds, that's it for hoops until next season. So shoot your shot while you can. And same game parlays are the best way to get in on the action. Big teams, superstars, clutch performances. There's so many storylines to bet on. So why not stack them all into a same game parlay for a bigger payout? If you're ever late to tip off, don't worry. Hard Rock Bet lets you live bet all game long, from the first bucket to the final buzzer. Try your first bet on Hard Rock Bet today, and you could score $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but an extra $150 in bonus bets. And sure, Hard Rock Bet is Florida's only legal sports book, but you don't have to be in Florida to join the party. Hard Rock Bet is also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and Michigan, with more states on the way. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today, and let's get the party started. De'Aaron Fox ends up having a turnover here in the open court. This was an example of why I didn't love the lack of a timeout for Mitchell Robinson. The Spurs were just kind of a little chaotic in transition. So on a final possession, I would have slowed down. He ends up turning it over, throwing it back to McHale. McHale ends up making a nice read at the rim that goes to a wide open Jalen Brunson. He just smokes the three. But in transition, off the cross match, after that missed three, here we get our transition cross match. Harper has Brunson now as he snakes through the lane, pulls it out. Now he's got his cross match. And this is, again, why I want to see that 4-guard lineup. I want to see more of this. And Harper goes right at Brunson, scores easily, ties the game. Bad play here from Julian Champagnie. I'm going to fast forward through it. Brunson ends up giving up the ball to Shamet. After he gives up the ball to Shamet, Shamet drives. He's going nowhere. He's locked up. At this point, Champagnie has one job. Fox doesn't need help here. Your one job is to make sure this easiest pass is not available. Champagnie ends up losing sight of OG Anunoby. Big mistake. Leaves his feet. That puts himself in a predicament where OG relocates. He ends up fouling a shooter. Big mistake from Julian Champagnie there down the stretch. This is a very well executed double drag. Go into the double screen. Brunson shows. Fox goes to the behind the back dribble to split. Really nice play from Fox. Because he cleanly beats these two guys, that forces Cat to step up, which opens up the easy lob pass to Wemby. This was a huge sequence from OG Anunoby and Karl-Anthony Towns that kind of got lost in the shuffle last night. We're playing through Mikal Bridges. Mikal ends up in some trouble, kind of going nowhere. But in this little slip screen with OG gets the ball and ends up cleanly beating. Look at how much time's on the shot clock. OG's got the ball 30 feet from the basket with 2.1 on the shot clock. And look at how he screams downhill and gets something off the glass, which forces Dylan Harper to step up, which then leaves Cat in offensive rebound position. Cat keeps it alive. Champagnie hits it out of bounds. So 2 seconds on the shot clock. That possession is dead. Probably ended up with a jacked up shot with a matched up player against Cat who can at least box him out. The Spurs might have a chance to get a rebound. Now they could be going down to take the lead. Instead, OG turns a nothing into something, gets something up off the glass, forces help, gets Karl-Anthony Towns the offensive rebound opportunity. Then on the sideline out of bounds, or baseline out of bounds, look at this play. Mikal Bridges coming off. Wemby doesn't want to help because he doesn't want to come off of Cat. Fox gets wiped out on the screen. Because he gets wiped out on the screen, Dylan Harper steps up. Because Dylan Harper steps up, Mikal hits Jalen Brunson coming back in bounds. There's Champagnie in the late. Couple things there. Champagnie's probably a little too locked in on Josh Hart there. Probably needs to come over further. And then also, if I'm Dylan Harper, I'd rather have Mikal Bridges take a contested pull-up midi here than give up a layup to Brunson. So another kind of defensive breakdown from the Spurs. But again, that's a layup that made it 102-99 because OG Anunoby and Karl-Anthony Towns turned a broken possession into an extra possession. On this play, this was kind of a chaotic transition sequence. I think if I remember correctly, Wemby airballs a corner three. Wemby airballs a corner three. In transition going the other way. Brunson smokes the layup on Fox. We go out the other way. Dylan Harper in transition gets downhill and puts it up on the glass and gets the goaltending call on Cat. Brunson on this entire possession, I'm going back here because I'm connecting the transition piece here. Brunson on this entire possession just basically takes the possession off and he goes and stands in the corner. They run through Mikal Bridges to get the little slip screen here with OG Anunoby that allows Mikal to turn the corner. We get a nice block, in this case from Devin Vassell, who comes off of Josh Hart in the corner. So he gets the stop on Mikal Bridges. Spurs run out the other way. You have Wemby trailing the play and he draws the foul for the and one. Big play. This is the Jalen Brunson tough bucket. This is the stuff you got to live with, though. Again, Brunson's been putrid down the stretch of this game. So, like, I get it. He tied the game here. But, like, this is where you got to trust your process and not go into game 3 thinking, oh, we need to double team Brunson because he hit a clutch shot. No, the Spurs were down 14. And now they're up by 2, in large part because this guy keeps shooting bad shots. So you need to continue to trust the process here. He does like the Champagny matchup, gets downhill into Champagny's chest with this hard drive, and goes into a very, very nifty one-leg fadeaway. Big time shot from Jalen Brunson, tip of the cap. But again, this is where if I'm running the Spurs, I'm trusting the process moving forward. Here's our first 2-for-1 possession. Did not like this. These straight ISOs for Wemby against Mitch, this is a heavily contested shot. Look at the contest for Mitch. Like, Mitch gets a very good contest on the release. He's timed it perfectly, kind of disrupts Wemby's base a little bit, and as a result, the shot barely grazes the outside of the rim. Didn't love that shot. Going the other way, this is kind of the beginning of the end here. Did not like this play from Steph Castle. He's guarding Jalen Brunson, unnecessarily pressuring him really far from the basket with 22 seconds left. He's just trying to take a foul here because they have a foul to give. So Brunson drives and he just rakes him. Reaching in, he's just being super aggressive. You pick up that foul, now you don't have a foul to give, which is precisely what sends Brunson to the foul line after the turnover that Wemby has in a minute. My thing is, like, play him straight up, give him more space, and yeah, if you're compromised, take the foul. Like, if Brunson beats you with a good move and you think he's going to score, by all means, commit a foul. But this is just giving a foul for the sake of giving a foul, which then puts them in the penalty the rest of the way. Now we go to the final possession. I skipped ahead for this clip so you can see the transition sequence, but we get the ball screen and it's a switch, okay? So now we're going back to switching the ball screen. Wemby's on Jalen Brunson, forces him into a tough pull-up, misses it, gets the rebound, boom. Now, Wemby has the ball. There's 13 seconds on the shot clock. But Wemby has the ball literally 92 feet from the basket with his back turned towards towards his own rim, facing his own bench. Call a timeout. Call a timeout. Get a good shot. I was talking about this on the All NBA pod with Adam Mares on Saturday, but like I've been thinking a lot about this concept because I went right after the game last night and I thought there was less time left. I ended up thinking there was 7 seconds left at the time of this timeout. It ends up being that there's 13, so there's more time. But I still feel the same way. And the main reason why is I think that you trust your guys to go make something happen in a situation like that if they are rock solid ball handlers. And I like Wemby. I think he's the best player in the world. He is not a rock solid ball handler. Neither is De'Aaron Fox. Neither is Steph Castle. Neither is Dylan Harper. This is a timeout team, not a let him play team. The list of guys I would trust in a situation like that is only like a half dozen long. It's like Luka, Jokic, Shea, LeBron. You know, there's a handful of guys. Jalen Brunson's one of them. There's a handful of guys that I trust in a situation like that to walk the ball up the floor. If it's a player that's not necessarily a super steady ball handler, call a timeout. Now, as you guys can see, Steph is looking, because now I'm already saying it's Mitch's fault. It's Mitch's fault. It's Mitch's fault. But now that we're playing, let's look at what happened. You guys might have seen a clip from a camera that was down here facing this way, where you see Steph Castle is looking for the ball. But even above and beyond anything having to do with whether or not Steph is looking, because he turns his head and Wemby throws it to him. But the other problem here is, look at where Jalen Brunson is. Even if you hit Castle and he catches this ball, he's got a defender right in front of him who is notorious for trying to take charges and swipe down at the basketball. If Brunson's not here, and Brunson's over here, by all means, throw the ball to Castle. He's got a lane. He's got advantage. But this is just a poor decision from Wemby under these circumstances. Again, though, I keep thinking you had multiple transition turnovers before this point. This is a chaotic play. Call a timeout and get your guys a good look. And then after the play, Wemby ends up running into Brunson, who falls over. And now you're in the penalty because of what happened on that previous play where you just put them in the penalty for no reason. Now Brunson goes down, makes one of 2 free throws. You call a timeout, you actually end up running a good play here. What I like about the difference between this play and the one where Wemby missed over Mitch earlier was the one where Wemby missed over Mitch was an ISO. Here we have a ball screen, which drags Mitch further away, which gets Wemby basically a closeout. He fakes that jab. See how he like kind of catches, looks down, jab. It freezes Mitch for a second. Now look at the difference in separation. When Mitch isn't even in the frame, Wemby gets a great look. That's why I like if you're going to run a play for Wemby as a scorer, get it to him as part of a screening action rather than in a situation where he's, a static up against a guy who's got a size and strength advantage on him. Anyway, big adjustments moving forward into game 3. You got to see less aggressive coverages on Brunson that stress his decisions in the shoot pass zone there in the middle of the floor. I think Brunson will make mistakes and take a lot of bad shots like he did down the stretch. 2, get out in transition as much as possible to avoid the half court situation. 3, in the half court, target Brunson as much as humanly possible. When you're targeting Brunson, you'll have an easier time if you go to your 4-guard lineup with Vassell, Castle, Wemby, Harper, and Fox. It just puts Brunson in a situation where he has to guard somebody that can score. Last thing, which was clearly screaming off the film here, you can't afford mistakes. You can't afford to leave guys open. You can't afford to lose contain on the ball with 2 seconds on the shot clock. You can't afford to foul a 3-point shooter. You can't afford to overhelp on a baseline out of bounds and give up a slip layup. Like, there's just too many mistakes from the Spurs when the margins are this tight, and that's where they're going to have to be better if they're going to have any chance to make a series out of this thing. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show. We will be back tomorrow night after the final buzzer of Game 1. Should be a ton of fun. Hope to see you guys there.